The smell hit me first. Sweet, metallic, wrong. I pushed open the warehouse door expecting to find my daughter Ivy safe, maybe scared, but alive. Instead, I found pieces of her scattered across the concrete floor like discarded meat from a butcher's table. 20 years as a military torture specialist, and I'd never seen anything this savage. This wasn't just murder. This was a message. Someone had taken their time with my baby girl, peeled away layers of skin with surgical precision, kept her conscious through most of it. The patterns told a story I didn't want to read. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. 3 hours earlier, Ivy had called me crying. Dad, I think I made a terrible mistake. Adrian Blackstone, he's not who I thought he was. I found something in his office, something that could destroy him. I'm scared, Dad. Really scared. Adrian Blackstone, billionaire, philanthropist, the man who'd been dating my daughter for 6 months, showering her with gifts, promising her the world. The man I'd never trusted, something cold behind those calculating eyes whenever we shook hands. Where are you, sweetheart? I'd asked, already reaching for my jacket. The old warehouse on 5th Street. He asked me to meet him here to talk. Dad, I should have listened to you. There's blood on his hands, real blood. I found photos, documents. People who crossed him just disappeared. The line went dead. Now I understood why. I knelt beside what remained of my daughter, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. Training kicked in. Document everything. Remember every detail. The cuts were too precise for amateur work. Whoever did this knew anatomy, knew how to maximize pain while keeping the victim alive. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mr. Nathaniel Cross, former Army Ranger, retired torture specialist, decorated veteran. The voice was smooth, educated, amused. Your daughter had such beautiful skin. We kept some samples. Blackstone. Oh, I think we're past formalities now. Your little girl found something she shouldn't have. Asked too many questions. You understand how business works, don't you? Loose ends need cutting. The warehouse suddenly felt smaller. Security cameras in the corners I hadn't noticed before. Red dots blinking like watching eyes. You made one mistake, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. And what's that? You left me alive. His laughter echoed through the phone. You're 62 years old, Cross. A has-been soldier living on pension checks. What exactly do you think you can do to me? I stood up, memorizing every inch of the scene. Every blood splatter, every cut pattern, every piece of evidence that would help me hunt down everyone responsible. Adrian Blackstone, net worth $8 billion. 3 homes, 4 cars, 7 security guards, and connections to the Torino crime family. You think money makes you untouchable. Silence on the other end. Here's what you don't know about me. For 20 years, I broke people who thought they were untouchable. Warlords, terrorists, men who believed fear made them gods. I learned their pressure points, their weaknesses, how to make them beg. My voice grew colder with each word. I'm going to find everyone who touched my daughter, everyone who watched, everyone who knew and did nothing. And I'm going to teach them what real fear feels like. You threatening me, old man? No, I'm making you a promise. I hung up and looked at my daughter one last time. Ivy had been studying law, wanted to be a prosecutor, fight for justice. She believed in right and wrong, in good winning over evil. She died because she tried to do the right thing. The warehouse door slammed behind me as I walked into the night. Adrian Blackstone had $8 billion, political connections, and an army of criminals protecting him. But he'd never face someone like me. Someone who knew that the worst torture isn't physical pain. It's watching everything you love turn to ash while you're powerless to stop it. The hunt was about to begin. The police station felt like a morgue when I walked in at 3 a.m. Detective Logan Webb looked up from his coffee, already knowing why I was there. The way his eyes avoided mine told me everything I needed to know about how deep this corruption ran. Mr. Cross, I'm sorry for your loss, but nothing. I slammed the evidence photos on his desk. My daughter was tortured and murdered. I want every available unit on this case. Webb barely glanced at the photos. We'll investigate thoroughly, I promise. These things take time. Time. I leaned forward. Detective, I spent 2 decades extracting information from people who specialized in making problems disappear. I know what a cover-up looks like. His phone buzzed. He answered immediately, turning away from me. Yes, sir. Understood. No, he's here now. His voice dropped to a whisper. The warehouse has already been cleaned. No evidence remaining. My blood went cold. It had been less than 4 hours since I found Ivy. Who was that? I demanded. Look, Mr. Cross, I understand you're grieving, but sometimes these cases, they're complicated. Your daughter was involved with some dangerous people. Maybe she got in over her head. Are you suggesting this was her fault? Webb's partner, Detective Brooke Martinez, emerged from the back office. Unlike Webb, she met my eyes directly. Something flickered there, sympathy, maybe even anger. Mr. Cross, I've reviewed the preliminary report, she said carefully. There are inconsistencies in the timeline that need further investigation. Webb shot her a warning look. Detective Martinez, perhaps you should focus on the Henderson case. The Henderson case can wait. Her voice carried steel. A young woman was brutally murdered, and her father deserves answers. I studied Martinez's face. 20 years of reading people taught me to recognize when someone was fighting their own battle. She knew more than she could say in front of Webb. I want to see the crime scene, I said. That's not possible, Webb replied quickly. The warehouse is private property. Mr. Blackstone's legal team has already secured the area. Blackstone's legal team? The pieces clicked together. How did they know about the warehouse so fast? Webb's face flushed. The investigation is ongoing. I pulled out my phone and showed them the recording I'd made of Blackstone's call. This is a confession to murder. Are you telling me this isn't enough for an arrest warrant? Recordings can be faked, Webb said, but his hands were shaking now. We need corroborating evidence. Martinez stepped closer. Mr. Cross, perhaps we could discuss this more privately. Tomorrow morning, say 9 a.m., the coffee shop on Maple Street. Webb's eyes narrowed. Detective Martinez, I think Mr. Cross has been through enough tonight. She handed me her card. We'll be in touch. Outside the station, I sat in my truck and called my old unit commander, Colonel Victor Steele. He answered on the second ring. Nathaniel? It's 3:30 in the morning. Victor, they killed Ivy. Silence stretched between us. Victor had been at Ivy's graduation, her birthday parties. He'd watched her grow up, called her his honorary niece. What do you need? Information. Access. The kind of resources that don't exist officially. Who are we hunting? Adrian Blackstone. Billionaire with Mafia connections. He owns half the police force in this city. Give me 6 hours. I'll make some calls. After hanging up, I drove past the warehouse. Sure enough, it was cordoned off with private security, not police tape. 3 black SUVs surrounded the building. Men in expensive suits supervised as a cleaning crew worked inside. They were erasing my daughter like she never existed. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your daughter screamed your name at the end. Begged us to call you. We laughed. Attached was a photo that made my vision blur with rage. But beneath the fury, something colder took root. These people had no idea what they'd awakened. They thought intimidation would break me, make me retreat into grief and helplessness. They were about to learn the difference between a broken old man and a weapon that had been temporarily sheathed. I drove home and went to my basement. Behind the water heater, hidden for 15 years, was a military footlocker. Inside, encrypted communication devices, untraceable weapons, surveillance equipment, and contacts for people who could make problems disappear. The official investigation was already compromised. Time to start the unofficial one. By dawn, my basement had transformed into an operational command center. 3 encrypted laptops hummed quietly while facial recognition software scanned social media for anyone connected to Blackstone. The old skills came flooding back like muscle memory, surveillance patterns, psychological profiles, pressure point analysis. 20 years ago, I wasn't Nathaniel Cross, grieving father. I was Ghost 7, the interrogator who could break anyone without leaving a mark. The Pentagon's secret weapon for extracting information from high-value targets who thought they were beyond reach. Warlords, cartel leaders, terrorist financiers, they all sang eventually. Some begged. Some bargained. All of them broke. My secure phone lit up. Victor's voice crackled through the encrypted line. Jesus Christ, Nathaniel. Adrian Blackstone isn't just connected to organized crime. He's their primary money launderer for the entire eastern seaboard. His art galleries, construction companies, charity foundations, all fronts. The Torino family has been funneling dirty money through his operations for decades. I pulled up Blackstone's financial records on one screen while tracking his security details' movement patterns on another. What else? Your daughter stumbled onto something massive. 3 weeks ago, she accessed Blackstone's private server at his penthouse office, downloaded financial records showing wire transfers to shell companies in 7 countries. We're talking about $50 million in dirty money moved just last month. My fingers tightened around the phone. Ivy had always been too curious for her own good, too determined to expose injustice. It's what made her a brilliant law student. It's also what got her killed. There's more, Victor continued. Blackstone has a private security firm, former military contractors who specialize in wet work. The man who tortured your daughter? Felix Romano. He's Torino family, but Blackstone keeps him on retainer for special projects. Felix Romano. I memorized the name while pulling up his service record. Former Army Ranger, dishonorably discharged for excessive force during interrogations. The man had learned from the best, then corrupted those skills for profit. I need a location on Romano. Already ahead of you. He owns a private club downtown. Mason's Den high-end gambling. Exclusive clientele, very discreet. Perfect place for conducting business that doesn't officially exist. I studied the building schematics Victor had sent. 3 floors, multiple exits, private elevator to the penthouse. Romano's office was on the 3rd floor, surrounded by enough security to stop a small army. But I wasn't planning an assault. I was planning an infiltration. Victor, I need one more favor. Remember Julian Voss from the Belgrade operation? The forger who owed us after we kept him out of The Hague. He's still operational. New identity documents are his specialty now. Very expensive, very thorough. Money's not an issue. I need to become someone Romano would trust, someone with information he needs. While waiting for Voss to craft my new identity, I studied Romano's psychological profile. The man had a weakness for valuable intelligence, especially if it concerned threats to his employers. He'd built his reputation on being 3 steps ahead of law enforcement. Time to feed that ego. My doorbell rang at noon. Detective Martinez stood on my porch, looking over her shoulder nervously. Mr. Cross, we need to talk. I led her to my kitchen, noting how her eyes swept the room. Trained observation skills, not just casual curiosity. You're military, she said. It wasn't a question. Was. Long time ago. Not just military. Intelligence. Black Ops. The kind of operations that don't exist in official records. She pulled out a tablet, showing me surveillance footage. This morning, someone accessed the federal database and pulled classified files on Adrian Blackstone. The digital fingerprints led back to Pentagon servers that were supposedly decommissioned 15 years ago. I poured coffee, keeping my expression neutral. Interesting theory. My father was Special Forces. I know what repurposed military equipment looks like when I see it. She gestured toward the basement door. Whatever you're planning, you're not doing it alone. Detective Martinez, Brooke. And before you try to convince me to walk away, you should know that Blackstone's people approached me yesterday. Offered me $50,000 to ensure your daughter's case gets buried in paperwork. My hand stopped halfway to my coffee cup. And I told them I'd consider it. Then I went home and threw up for an hour. Her jaw tightened. Ivy wasn't the first, Mr. Cross. 3 other young women have disappeared over the past 2 years, all connected to Blackstone's social circle. All cases that mysteriously went cold. Why tell me this? Because I became a cop to catch monsters, not enable them. And because I recognize a predator when I see one. Both the kind that wears expensive suits and the kind that hunts them. I studied her face, reading the determination mixed with fear. She was risking everything by being here. What do you want from me? I want justice for your daughter and those other girls. I want Blackstone and his entire network exposed. And I want to watch them burn. She leaned forward. I also want to make sure you don't become the monster you're hunting. My phone buzzed. Voss had completed the identity documents. In 6 hours, Nathaniel Cross would disappear, and Marcus Webb, arms dealer with connections to Eastern European crime syndicates, would make contact with Felix Romano. The hunt was about to begin in earnest. Detective Martinez, I said carefully, some hunts require getting your hands dirty. Then it's good I brought gloves. Mason's den pulsed with expensive corruption. Crystal chandeliers cast shadows over poker tables where city councilmen lost taxpayer money to mob lawyers. The air reeked of Cuban cigars and laundered cash. I'd spent 3 hours perfecting Marcus Webb's persona. Eastern European accent, military bearing, the subtle arrogance of someone who sold death for profit. My new identity came with a complete backstory. Marcus Webb had supplied weapons to 3 different civil wars, maintained contacts in 12 countries, and possessed information about a federal task force planning to raid Romano's operations. Information that Romano would kill to obtain. The elevator to the 3rd floor required a special keycard. I'd obtained mine by following Romano's lieutenant, Quentin Hayes, into the parking garage and relieving him of consciousness for exactly 90 seconds, long enough to clone his access credentials without triggering security alerts. Romano's office was a study in controlled menace. Military awards covered one wall, while surveillance monitors showed every angle of the building. The man himself sat behind a mahogany desk, studying my forged credentials with professional skepticism. Marcus Webb, he said, testing the name. Impressive portfolio. Belgrade, Mogadishu, 3 different African conflicts. But I've never heard of you. Good operators stay invisible. I replied, letting my manufactured accent color each word. Bad ones end up in prison or graves. Which would you prefer I be? Romano smiled, the expression of a predator recognizing another predator. Fair point. My associate says you have information about federal interest in my business operations. Operation Clean Sweep. Joint FBI-TF Task Force. They've been building a case for 18 months, focusing on your weapons distribution network. Wiretaps, financial tracking, the complete package. I slid a folder across his desk containing enough real intelligence to be convincing, mixed with carefully crafted disinformation. Information Brooke had helped me compile from her contacts in federal law enforcement. Romano opened the folder, his expression growing darker with each page. These intercepts, they're dated 3 days ago. Task Force leader is Special Agent Tessa Morgan. Ambitious, hungry for a career-making bust. She's convinced you're the key to bringing down the entire Torino money laundering operation. How do I know this isn't a setup? How do I know you're not working with them? I leaned back in my chair, projecting the confidence of someone holding all the cards. Because if I was federal, you'd already be in custody. They have enough evidence for RICO charges. The only reason you're still breathing free air is because they want the bigger fish, Adrian Blackstone. Romano's face went pale. What do you know about Blackstone? I know his daughter recently became a problem that needed permanent solving. I know you handled that problem with impressive creativity. My voice never wavered despite the rage building in my chest. I also know that Blackstone's about to throw you to the wolves to save himself. That's impossible. Blackstone needs me. Blackstone needs distance from anyone who can connect him to wet work. You think he'll hesitate to sacrifice you when federal agents start asking uncomfortable questions? I placed a second folder on the desk. This one contained surveillance photos of Blackstone meeting with his lawyers, financial records showing money transfers to offshore accounts, and forged documentation suggesting he was preparing to flee the country. He's cutting ties with all physical assets, properties, vehicles, anyone who knows too much. You're not an employee to him, Romano. You're evidence. Romano studied the documents, his hands trembling slightly. Fear was taking root, the first crack in his armor. What do you want? Partnership. You have local connections, operational security, manpower. I have international contacts and an exit strategy that doesn't involve federal prison. I paused, letting him process. I also have information about Blackstone's private accounts that could set us both up for life. And in return, I want details about recent operations, personnel involved, methods used, disposal protocols, complete operational transparency. Romano was quiet for 30 seconds, weighing his options. Finally, he opened a secure laptop and pulled up encrypted files. 3 weeks ago, Blackstone's girlfriend accessed his private server, downloaded financial records that could have destroyed everything we've built. She had to be neutralized, but Blackstone wanted it done publicly. A message to anyone else thinking about betraying him. My jaw clenched, but I kept my expression neutral. Professional work requires professional methods. I used advanced interrogation techniques, kept her conscious for 6 hours, extracted everything she'd learned, who she'd told, where she'd hidden backup files. Romano's voice carried sick pride. She broke completely, gave up password codes, contact information, even begged us to let her call her father. And Blackstone recorded it all. Insurance policy. He keeps video files of every operation in case he needs leverage later. My heart pounded, but years of training kept my voice steady. Smart businessman. Where does he store the files? Private server in his penthouse. Biometric access only. The man's paranoid about digital security. I memorized every detail while maintaining my cover. Ivy had suffered for 6 hours. They'd recorded her torture. Blackstone had turned my daughter's death into entertainment and insurance. I'll need access to those files before we can move forward, I said. Mutual insurance, you understand. Romano nodded. I can arrange a meeting with Blackstone. But first, you'll need to prove your value. I have a situation requiring immediate attention. What kind of situation? Police detective named Martinez. She's been asking uncomfortable questions about recent operations. Blackstone wants her discouraged. My blood went cold, but I forced a smile. What level of discouragement? The permanent kind. Tonight. The parking garage beneath Brooke's apartment building was perfect for an ambush. Isolated, poorly lit, multiple escape routes. Romano's men would expect her to return from her evening shift around midnight. They'd planted explosives under her car, rigged to detonate when she turned the ignition. Clean, efficient, untraceable. What they didn't expect was me waiting in the shadows with thermal imaging equipment and 20 years of counter-surveillance training. I'd sent Brooke a coded text 3 hours earlier. Coffee shop, closed early. Meet at alternate location. She'd understood immediately, our predetermined signal for imminent danger. By now, she was safely hidden in a federal safe house, coordinating with Agent Morgan's task force through encrypted channels. But Romano's team didn't know that. At 11:47 p.m., 3 men entered the garage. The leader was Dominic Vega, Romano's most trusted enforcer, a former Marine whose service record showed expertise in explosive ordnance disposal. He'd reversed that training for more profitable purposes. I watched through night vision scopes as they checked the bomb placement, tested remote detonators, and positioned themselves for optimal observation. Professional work, but predictable. They were following a standard assassination protocol I'd helped develop 15 years ago. Time to improvise. My first target was their communications specialist, positioned near the stairwell exit. A silenced dart to the neck delivered enough sedative to drop him unconscious in seconds. Military-grade tranquilizer. He'd wake up in federal custody with no memory of the past 12 hours. The second man noticed his partner's absence after 90 seconds. He approached the stairwell cautiously, weapon drawn, every instinct screaming danger. I let him find the body, let him report the compromise over his radio. Base, we have a problem. Johnson's down. Unknown hostiles in the AO. Romano's voice crackled through the comm system. Abort mission. Extract immediately. Negative. Still have eyes on the target vehicle. Proceeding with primary objective. Stand down, Vega. That's a direct order. Your orders don't mean shit if we're compromised. Detonating now. I smiled in the darkness. Desperation made people predictable. Vega pressed the detonator button 3 times before realizing the device was dead. While he'd been reporting to Romano, I'd used military-grade signal jammers to block all electronic transmissions in the garage. His bombs were inert, his communications severed, his backup plans useless. The third team member panicked, firing random shots into the darkness. Muzzle flashes revealed his position perfectly. I moved through the shadows like smoke, using concrete pillars for cover, closing the distance with each poorly aimed volley. When his magazine emptied, I stepped into view, dropped the weapon. He spun around, fumbling for a fresh clip. I shot him with a tranquilizer dart before he could reload. He collapsed beside his unconscious partner. Vega was the real prize. The man who'd planted bombs intended to kill Brooke, who'd murdered at least 6 people in the past year according to his service record. He backed against a concrete pillar, service pistol trained on my chest. "You're not Marcus Webb," he said, studying my face. "Webb's been dead for 3 years. I checked. Then you know exactly who I am." Recognition dawned in his eyes. Nathaniel Cross, the girl's father. The girl had a name. Ivy. She was 24 years old, studying law, wanted to be a prosecutor. She believed in justice. My voice echoed through the empty garage. "You helped torture her to death." I wasn't there for that operation. Romano handled the interrogation personally. But you cleaned up afterward. Disposed of evidence. Made sure no trace remained. Vega's hand shook slightly. "Look, Cross, I understand you want revenge, but this won't bring her back. Romano has security footage of everything. You kill me, that video disappears forever." Video footage? My heart stopped. 6 hours of interrogation. Your daughter begging, screaming, calling your name. Romano keeps it as insurance, but if something happens to his key personnel. Vega smiled coldly. Poof. Gone forever. The rage building in my chest threatened to consume rational thought. They'd recorded Ivy's torture, turned her suffering into leverage. Every protective instinct screamed for immediate violence. But 20 years of military discipline held firm. Emotion was a luxury I couldn't afford. Where's the footage stored? Blackstone's private server. Biometric access only. Even if you could get inside his penthouse, you'd need his fingerprints and retinal scan. I shot him with a double dose of tranquilizer. As he collapsed, I searched his pockets, finding encrypted communications devices, falsified identification documents, and a key card for Mason's Denver. But the most valuable discovery was his cell phone. Unlocked, with recent message threads showing the location of Romano's safe house, tomorrow's operational schedules, and most importantly, security protocols for Blackstone's penthouse. I photographed everything before calling Agent Morgan. 3 packages ready for pickup. Garage level B, 2, southeast corner. They'll be unconscious for 6 hours. Any complications? None. But Romano knows his team is compromised. He'll escalate security protocols immediately. And Blackstone. I stared at Vega's unconscious form, thinking about the video footage of my daughter's torture. Blackstone's about to discover that some hunts require getting close to the prey. Cross, don't do anything. I ended the call and walked into the night. Phase 1 was complete. Romano's trust was secured, his operational security compromised, and 3 of his key personnel were now federal assets. But the real game was just beginning. Romano's safe house sat like a fortress in the industrial district. 3 stories of reinforced concrete surrounded by razor wire and motion sensors. 24 hours after the garage incident, he'd moved his entire operation underground, trusting no one, suspecting everyone. Exactly where I needed him to be. My secure phone buzzed at 6 a.m. Romano's voice carried the edge of a man sleeping with loaded weapons. "Webb, we need to meet. Yesterday's complications have accelerated our timeline." "I'm listening." "Not over comms. Mason's Den, private dining room, 1 hour. Come alone." The club felt different in daylight. Smaller, seedier, like a movie set without proper lighting. Romano waited in a soundproofed room behind the main floor, surrounded by enough electronic countermeasures to block satellite surveillance. His paranoia was becoming an asset. "My entire security team was compromised last night," he said without preamble. 3 men with 15 years of combined experience, taken down by a single operator. Professional work. Federal agents? Unknown. But whoever did this left my people alive, sedated but unharmed. That's either impressive restraint or calculated psychological warfare. I leaned forward, projecting concerned partnership. "What did your people tell you before they were taken?" "Nothing. Their memories of the evening are completely blank. Military-grade memory suppressants, probably administered through tranquilizer compounds." Romano's eyes narrowed. "The kind of techniques used by Black Ops specialists. You think someone from my background is hunting you? I think Nathaniel Cross is more dangerous than we anticipated." My pulse quickened, but years of cover work kept my expression neutral. "The dead girl's father? What makes you think he's involved?" Romano activated a secure laptop, pulling up surveillance footage from the garage. The image quality was poor, shadows and thermal signatures rather than clear identification, but it showed a single figure systematically neutralizing his team. Movement patterns, tactical positioning, equipment selection. This isn't some grieving father acting on emotion. This is a professional operator with extensive training and significant resources. "What do you know about Cross's background?" "More than I'd like." Romano opened a classified military file that had cost him considerable money to obtain. Nathaniel Cross, codename Ghost 7. 20 years with Army Special Operations, specialized in high-value target interrogation and psychological warfare. The Pentagon's go-to man for breaking people who thought they were unbreakable. I studied my own service record, noting which details remained classified, which had been redacted, and which Romano's sources had managed to uncover. Impressive intelligence gathering, but incomplete. The most dangerous operations stayed buried. Decorated veteran, clean record, early retirement with full honors, Romano continued. On paper, he's exactly what he appears to be, a broken father seeking justice for his murdered daughter. And off paper, he's a weapon that's been sleeping for 15 years. And we just gave him a reason to wake up. Romano pulled up additional files, financial records showing my pension payments, property ownership, known associates. Someone had done their homework, but they'd missed the most important details. The offshore accounts Victor had helped me establish. The safe deposit boxes containing emergency identities. The network of former operators who owed me favors. How do you want to handle this? Carefully. Cross isn't some street thug we can intimidate or eliminate through standard methods. He's trained to hunt people like us, and he has nothing left to lose. Romano closed the laptop. But he also has weaknesses we can exploit, such as emotion. For all his training, he's operating from a place of grief and rage. That makes him predictable in certain ways, vulnerable to specific psychological pressures. I forced myself to remain calm as Romano outlined a strategy that involved using Ivy's memory as psychological torture, threatening to destroy evidence of her murder, and targeting anyone I might care about. The man was systematically planning to weaponize my daughter's death against me. There's something else, Romano continued. Blackstone wants to accelerate the timeline. He's received intelligence suggesting federal interest in his operations extends beyond what we initially believed. How accelerated? Complete operational shutdown within 72 hours. All physical assets eliminated. All personnel relocated. All evidence destroyed. Romano met my eyes, including the Cross Girls' interrogation footage. My blood went cold. That seems wasteful. Video evidence has significant value as leverage, not if it can be traced back to us. Blackstone's lawyers have advised complete scorched earth protocol. 72 hours. After that, any chance of recovering the footage of Ivy's torture would disappear forever, along with most of the evidence needed to bring down Blackstone's entire network. What about our partnership arrangement? Still active, but modified timeline. Tonight, you'll accompany me to Blackstone's penthouse for final operational briefing. He wants to meet his new arms supplier before we disappear his assets. Perfect. I've been trying to figure out how to get close to Blackstone without arousing suspicion. Romano was about to deliver me directly to the target. Security protocols? Extensive. Biometric scanners, armed guards, electronic countermeasures. Blackstone doesn't take chances. Romano smiled coldly. But he's expecting us. His people have been briefed about Marcus Webb, your background, your value to ongoing operations. I spent the afternoon fine-tuning my cover identity while coordinating with Brooke and Agent Morgan through encrypted channels. The federal task force would position surveillance teams around Blackstone's building, ready to move if the situation deteriorated. But they couldn't intervene directly without compromising the operation. This infiltration had to succeed on the first attempt. At sunset, Romano and I drove through downtown in his armored Mercedes. The man was nervous, constantly checking mirrors, adjusting routes, testing communication devices. His paranoia was infectious, but it also provided cover for my own preparations. Webb, I need to know you're committed to this partnership. What we're doing tonight, there's no going back. I've crossed lines that don't exist on any map, I replied, letting my fabricated accent carry conviction. Moral flexibility is a survival requirement in our profession. Good, because Blackstone is going to test that flexibility. The penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a 40-story building in the financial district. Private elevator, dedicated security team, enough electronic surveillance to monitor a small city. As we rose through the levels, I memorized every camera angle, every sensor placement, every potential vulnerability. Romano used his keycard and biometric scan to access the executive floor. The elevator opened into a reception area that looked more like a museum than a business office. Priceless artwork, ancient weapons, artifacts from a dozen different cultures. All of it stolen, according to Ivy's research. Mr. Romano, Mr. Webb. The voice belonged to a woman in her 30s, professionally dressed, carrying herself with military precision. Mr. Blackstone is waiting in the conference room. We were escorted through hallways lined with more stolen treasures. I noted security camera positions, emergency exits, the location of the private server room Vega had mentioned. Everything was exactly where intelligence reports had indicated. Adrian Blackstone stood with his back to us, staring out floor-to-ceiling windows at the city below. When he turned, I was looking at the man who had ordered my daughter's torture and murder. The man who had laughed while she screamed my name. Marcus Webb, he said, extending his hand. I've heard impressive things about your work. I shook hands with my daughter's killer, smiled, and began planning his destruction. Mr. Blackstone, the reputation is mutual. For the next hour, we discussed arms shipments, money laundering protocols, and elimination procedures. Blackstone spoke about murder and torture with the casual indifference of someone discussing weather patterns. He was a psychopath wrapped in expensive suits and charitable foundations. But he was also careless, overconfident. He showed me financial records, operational schedules, personnel files, information that would destroy his entire network if it fell into federal hands. Most importantly, He confirmed the location of his private server room and the storage protocols for his insurance files. I keep video documentation of all sensitive operations, he explained. Mutual insurance, you understand. If anyone betrays the organization, their associates face immediate consequences. Wise policy. I've found that fear is more reliable than loyalty. Exactly. For instance, the Cross Girl's interrogation footage serves multiple purposes. Entertainment value, psychological warfare against her father, and insurance against Romano should he ever consider cooperation with federal authorities. I wanted to kill him with my bare hands. Instead, I nodded approvingly and asked about technical specifications for the storage system. Biometric access only. My fingerprints and retinal scan, updated every 24 hours. Even my most trusted associates can't access the files without my direct authorization. Impressive security. Necessary security. Some secrets are too valuable to risk. As the meeting concluded, Blackstone walked us to the elevator. Mr. Webb, I look forward to our continued partnership. Your expertise will be invaluable as we expand operations into new territories. The pleasure is mine, Mr. Blackstone. The elevator doors closed, and we descended toward street level. Romano was relaxed now, convinced the evening had gone perfectly. He had no idea he'd just helped me case the most secure location in the city. Blackstone was impressed, he said. You handled that perfectly. I told you I was professional. But as we reached the lobby, Romano's phone rang. His face went pale as he listened to the caller. What is it? I asked. 3 more of my people were taken tonight. While we were upstairs. His hands shook as he ended the call. Cross is hunting us systematically. And he's getting closer. I looked appropriately concerned while calculating how much time I had before Romano connected Marcus Webb to Nathaniel Cross. Not long. The final phase would have to begin immediately. The abandoned textile factory on the outskirts of the city had been Romano's fallback location for 15 years. Concrete walls thick enough to muffle screams, industrial equipment perfect for disposing of evidence, and isolation that guaranteed privacy. He'd brought me here to demonstrate his capabilities, to show Marcus Webb the kind of work that had built his reputation. What he didn't know was that I'd been inside this building 3 times over the past week, mapping every entrance, every camera, every weakness in his security protocols. Welcome to my workshop, Romano said, leading me through a maze of abandoned machinery toward the basement levels. This is where serious business gets conducted. The basement had been converted into a sophisticated interrogation facility. Medical equipment lined the walls alongside instruments that had no legitimate purpose. Video cameras captured every angle of a steel chair bolted to the concrete floor. The chair where my daughter had died. Impressive setup. I managed, fighting to keep my voice steady. 20 years of refinement. I've broken cartel leaders, federal witnesses, even other professionals who thought they were untouchable. Romano gestured toward the recording equipment. Full documentation of every session. Insurance, entertainment, and training material all in one. He activated a large monitor, and my worst nightmare became reality. Ivy's face filled the screen, bruised, terrified, but still defiant in those first moments. Still believing someone would save her. Your daughter was particularly resilient, Romano continued, oblivious to my internal war between training and rage. Most subjects break within the first hour. She lasted 6. I watched him torture my child for entertainment, narrating techniques like a professor explaining surgical procedures. Every cut, every scream, every moment of her agony was preserved in high definition. When she called for me, begging for help that would never come, Romano had laughed. The psychological breaking point came when she realized no one was coming, he explained. That's when she gave up the password codes, the backup file locations, everything we needed. Professional work, I said, the words tasting like poison. The client requested something special for the finale, a message to anyone else who might consider betraying the organization. Romano fast-forwarded to the final minutes. We kept her conscious until the very end. I watched my daughter die, watched her last words, her final breath, the moment when life left her eyes. Romano had turned her murder into performance art, complete with multiple camera angles and professional lighting. When the video ended, Romano was smiling with professional pride. 6 hours of content, perfectly preserved. The client was extremely satisfied. Where are the originals stored? Blackstone's private server, encrypted and biometrically locked. Multiple redundant backups in case the primary system is compromised. Romano paused the playback on an image of Ivy's face. Beautiful girl. Waste of potential, really, but business is business. That's when Marcus Webb disappeared, and Ghost 7 took control. Romano, I said quietly. Yes. I'm going to show you something my daughter never got to see. His expression shifted as my accent vanished, my posture changed, and 20 years of suppressed violence rose to the surface. What the hell? I moved faster than his reflexes could process. A pressure point strike to his throat paralyzed his vocal cords while a nerve cluster attack dropped him to his knees. Military conditioning took over, precise, efficient, overwhelming. My name is Nathaniel Cross. The girl you tortured for 6 hours was my daughter. Recognition and terror warred in his eyes as he struggled against the paralysis spreading through his body. I'd used a combination of nerve strikes that would keep him conscious but helpless. The same techniques I'd once used on terrorists who thought pain could break them. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, securing his wrists with military-grade restraints. You're going to experience every technique you used on Ivy. Every cut, every burn, every moment of agony she endured. But I'm going to keep you alive much longer than you kept her. Romano tried to speak, managed only strangled gasps. The paralytic would wear off gradually, returning sensation in waves that would make every subsequent injury more intense. The difference between us is methodology. You torture for information and entertainment. I torture for education. I activated his own recording equipment, ensuring multiple camera angles captured what was about to happen. This footage will be sent to every one of your associates, every client, every person who thinks they're protected by fear. Over the next 4 hours, I systematically demonstrated 20 years of advanced interrogation techniques. Romano experienced pressure point manipulation that created agony without permanent damage, psychological warfare that shattered his sense of reality, and controlled pain application that kept him conscious and responsive throughout the entire process. But I wasn't a monster. I wasn't him. The beautiful thing about military training, I explained as Romano whimpered through his gag, is precision. I can make you feel everything your victims felt without causing irreversible damage. Well, mostly irreversible. I extracted information methodically. Security codes for Blackstone's building. Personnel schedules for his private guards. Technical specifications for the biometric scanners protecting his server room. Financial account numbers for offshore operations. The location of backup facilities and emergency protocols. Romano gave me everything, not because he was weak, but because I was better at this than he was. Better trained, better equipped, and motivated by something more powerful than profit or sadism. Justice. When I was finished, Romano was broken but alive. Conscious but completely defeated. He would recover physically, though the psychological damage would be permanent. He would also spend the rest of his life in federal prison, courtesy of the video evidence I was preparing to deliver. One more thing, I said, preparing the final syringe. You asked about Nathaniel Cross's background. What made him dangerous? The answer is simple. I don't just hunt monsters. I become whatever monster is necessary to stop them. The sedative would keep him unconscious for 8 hours, long enough for federal agents to arrive and secure the scene. But first, I had one final message to deliver. I uploaded the interrogation footage to an encrypted server, then transmitted copies to every number in Romano's contact list. Crime bosses, corrupt officials, mercenaries, arms dealers. They would all receive the same message. Nathaniel Cross was hunting them, and their protection meant nothing. But the real prize was Romano's confession about Blackstone's operation. For hours of detailed intelligence about money laundering, murder contracts, political corruption, and human trafficking. Enough evidence to bring down the entire network and everyone connected to it. I called Agent Morgan from Romano's secure phone. Package ready for pickup. Location transmitted. Target secured and ready for federal custody. Any complications? None. Subject provided extensive cooperation regarding ongoing criminal operations. Video evidence includes detailed confessions about multiple homicides and RICO violations. And Blackstone. I looked at the monitor still displaying Ivy's final moments. Then at Romano's unconscious form slumped in the chair where my daughter had died. Blackstone's next. Before leaving, I destroyed Romano's equipment but preserved the hard drives containing years of criminal evidence. The FBI would have enough material to prosecute dozens of cases, but the video of Ivy's torture would remain locked in Blackstone's private server. Time to retrieve it. The drive back to the city gave me time to process what I'd done. I'd tortured a man for information, used his own methods against him, become the kind of person I'd once hunted. But I'd also extracted justice for my daughter and dozens of other victims. Sometimes the line between justice and revenge disappears entirely. Tomorrow night, Adrian Blackstone would learn that some prices are paid in full, regardless of wealth or connections. The hunt was entering its final phase. 24 hours after Romano's capture, I received a text that changed everything. Your investigation ends now. Meet me at Pier 47, Warehouse 12. Come alone, or Detective Martinez dies. The message came from Blackstone's private number. Somehow, he discovered Marcus Webb's real identity and taken Brooke hostage. My carefully planned infiltration had become a trap, but something felt wrong. Blackstone was methodical, calculating. He didn't make desperate moves like kidnapping federal agents. This felt like panic, which meant I was missing something crucial. I arrived at the warehouse district 30 minutes early, using military surveillance techniques to scout the area. Pier 47 was isolated, surrounded by abandoned shipping containers and rusted machinery. Perfect for an ambush, but also perfect for what I had planned. Warehouse 12 sat at the end of the pier, its loading doors facing the harbor. Through thermal imaging, I detected 4 heat signatures inside, 3 standing, 1 sitting. The seated figure was likely Brooke, which meant Blackstone had brought 2 guards. Except the thermal patterns were wrong. The standing figures moved too casually, without the rigid positioning of professional security. And the seated figure's posture suggested they were restrained but not injured. I was walking into theater, not an execution. My secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Agent Morgan. Martinez is safe. Repeat, Martinez is safe. Do not engage at pier location. Now I knew this was a setup, but not the kind I'd expected. Someone was using Blackstone's resources to lure me into the open. Someone with access to his communications and personnel, but operating with a different agenda. I entered the warehouse through a skylight, rappelling silently into the shadows above. The scene below confirmed my suspicions. This wasn't Blackstone's operation. The woman tied to the chair wasn't Brooke Martinez. It was Giselle Torino, daughter of the crime family Blackstone laundered money for. The 2 guards were her personal security team, weapons holstered, relaxed posture indicating they were protecting rather than threatening her. Mr. Cross, Giselle called out, somehow knowing I was there despite my concealed position. Please come down. We need to talk. I remained in the shadows, scanning for additional threats. Where's Blackstone? Dead. Killed 3 hours ago in his penthouse office. Single gunshot to the head, professional execution style. The words hit like a physical blow. Dead meant no access to his private server. No recovery of Ivy's torture footage. No justice for her murder. I didn't kill him, Giselle continued. Though I wanted to. Adrian Blackstone was a liability that had outlived his usefulness. Then who did? The same person who's been systematically dismantling his organization for the past month. The same person who fed you intelligence about Romano's operations. The same person who's been 3 steps ahead of everyone involved. I dropped from the rafters, landing silently behind shipping containers that provided cover and clear sight lines to all exits. Explain. Giselle was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the kind of sharp intelligence that came from growing up in organized crime. She wore expensive clothes, but carried herself like someone comfortable with violence. My family has been laundering money through Blackstone's operations for 8 years. Legitimate business arrangement, mutually beneficial, professionally managed. Then 6 months ago, he started taking liberties. What kind of liberties? Personal projects. Blackstone developed a taste for torture, started using family resources for his entertainment. When we told him to stop, he threatened to expose our financial operations to federal authorities. So you decided to eliminate him? We decided to find a replacement. Someone with the skills to manage our operations without the psychological complications. Giselle smiled coldly. Someone like Marcus Webb. The pieces clicked together with devastating clarity. The Torino family hadn't been passive partners in Blackstone's operation. They'd been planning a hostile takeover. They'd used my investigation as cover for their own agenda, feeding me intelligence to destabilize Romano's security while positioning themselves to seize control of the entire money laundering network. You've been manipulating this entire situation. Partly. We provided intelligence about Romano's vulnerabilities, ensured certain federal investigations stayed misdirected, and created opportunities for you to eliminate key personnel. Giselle stood up, her restraints falling away easily. But your daughter's murder was real, your grief was real, and your skills were exactly what we needed. Needed for what? Adrian Blackstone kept insurance files on everyone he worked with. Video documentation of murders, financial records of illegal transactions, personal information about family members. Enough evidence to destroy every organization that trusted him. Where are the files now? That's the problem. Blackstone's private server was wiped 3 hours before his death. Someone with administrative access deleted everything. Financial records, operational plans, video files. All of it gone. My heart stopped. The footage of my daughter? Destroyed. Along with evidence of dozens of other murders, hundreds of financial crimes, and information about political corruption extending into the highest levels of government. I stared at her, processing the implications. Someone had killed Blackstone and destroyed the evidence before I could recover it. Ivy's torture footage was gone forever, along with any chance of bringing her real killers to justice. Who had administrative access to his server? Only 3 people. Blackstone himself, his head of security, and his personal assistant. Giselle paused meaningfully. His personal assistant was found dead in her apartment yesterday morning. Apparent suicide, though forensics suggest otherwise. And his head of security? That's where things get interesting. Quinn Morrison, former CIA operative, 15 years with Blackstone's organization. She disappeared the same night you interrogated Romano. Quinn Morrison isn't a man, Mr. Cross. She's a woman who's been running the most sophisticated criminal operation on the East Coast while everyone assumed she was just Blackstone's security chief. The implications were staggering. Quinn Morrison had been playing multiple sides, protecting Blackstone's operations while secretly planning to seize control, using my investigation to eliminate competition while positioning herself to inherit the entire network. Where is she now? Unknown. But she made one mistake when she wiped Blackstone's server. Giselle pulled out a tablet, showing encrypted files. She didn't know about the backup system my family installed 6 months ago. We have copies of everything, including the footage of your daughter's murder. I stared at the tablet, seeing file directories that contained answers to questions I'd been pursuing for weeks. Justice for Ivy. Evidence to bring down everyone involved. Everything I'd been fighting for. What do you want in return? Partnership. Quinn Morrison has 8 years of operational knowledge about our business activities. She can identify every asset, every contact, every vulnerability in our organization. We need someone with your skills to find her before she uses that information against us. And if I refuse? Giselle's expression hardened. Then Quinn Morrison disappears forever, taking the only copies of your daughter's murder footage with her. You'll never know exactly how she died, never see her killers brought to justice. I was trapped between two criminal organizations, both using my daughter's death as leverage. But Giselle was offering something Quinn Morrison couldn't: closure. I need to see the footage first. Of course, but understand, once you watch it, there's no going back. You'll know exactly what happened to Ivy, exactly who was responsible, and exactly what needs to be done about it. She activated the tablet, and my daughter's face appeared on the screen. This time, I was going to watch every second. The footage was worse than Romano's edited version. 6 hours compressed into 47 minutes of systematic torture, with Quinn Morrison's voice providing clinical commentary throughout. She wasn't just supervising, she was teaching, demonstrating advanced interrogation techniques while my daughter screamed. Subject is responding well to psychological pressure. Quinn's voice narrated as Ivy begged for her life. Combining physical pain with emotional manipulation accelerates the breaking process. I watched my daughter die again, but this time I saw the complete picture. Romano had been the muscle, following orders, applying techniques he'd learned from military training. But Quinn Morrison was the architect, the strategist who had planned every detail of Ivy's torture. She was training Romano, Giselle explained as the video ended. Using your daughter as a test subject for new interrogation methods. Where is Quinn now? That's what we need to find out. She liquidated 3 offshore accounts yesterday, withdrew $8 million in cash, and activated identity documents that took months to prepare. She's running, but she's not panicking. Giselle handed me a dossier containing Quinn's complete background. CIA operative for 12 years, specialized in deep cover operations and asset recruitment. Officially killed in action during a mission in Syria, but actually recruited by Blackstone for private sector work. She'd spent 8 years building the criminal network from the inside, gaining trust while planning betrayal. She's been stealing from us for 2 years, Giselle continued. Skimming money from operations, selling information to competitors, building her own network using our resources. When Blackstone started his torture hobby, she saw an opportunity to eliminate him and seize control. Why kill him now? Because your investigation was getting too close. Romano's capture exposed operational details that threatened the entire network. She needed Blackstone dead before federal agents could pressure him into cooperation. I studied Quinn's photograph, late 30s, unremarkable features, the kind of person who disappeared in crowds. But her eyes carried the cold calculation of someone comfortable with extreme violence. What's her exit strategy? Unknown. But she has contacts in 12 countries, multiple identity sets, and enough stolen money to disappear permanently. Giselle paused. Unless we find her first. My family has resources you need, international connections, financial tracking capabilities, access to criminal networks worldwide. You have skills we need, tactical expertise, federal law enforcement contacts, and personal motivation that money can't buy. The partnership made tactical sense, but it also meant working with the same criminal organization that had enabled my daughter's murder, trading one set of monsters for another. I need guarantees. Complete access to the torture footage, all evidence related to Ivy's murder, and federal immunity for any actions taken during this operation. Agreed. But we need guarantees too. Quinn Morrison dies, not captured. She knows too much about family operations to risk federal interrogation. I don't execute people for money. You execute them for justice. Quinn Morrison ordered your daughter's torture, recorded it for training purposes, and destroyed evidence to protect herself. This isn't about money. It's about eliminating a threat to everyone she's harmed. Giselle was right, but accepting her terms meant crossing a line I'd never crossed before. Military operations had rules of engagement, legal frameworks, official oversight. This would be assassination, pure and simple. How do we find her? Quinn made one mistake when she liquidated those accounts. She used a financial routing system that requires biometric verification for transactions over $5 million. We have contacts at 3 banks that processed her withdrawals. Recent intel? 12 hours old. She's still in the country, probably moving between safe houses while arranging international transport. Professional tradecraft, but she's operating alone now without organizational support. Giselle produced a tablet showing financial transaction records, communication intercepts, and surveillance footage from bank security cameras. Quinn had been careful, but not perfect. The money trail revealed patterns that could be exploited. She's heading north, I observed, studying the geographic distribution of transactions. Probably toward the Canadian border. Classic exfiltration route for compromised operatives. Our people are monitoring border crossings, but Quinn has resources we can't track. If she gets out of the country, she disappears forever. Then we don't let her reach the border. Over the next hour, Giselle and I planned a hunting strategy that combined military tactics with criminal intelligence networks. Her family's contacts would monitor transportation hubs, financial institutions, and communication channels. My federal connections would provide official surveillance and interdiction capabilities. But the real advantage was psychological. Quinn Morrison was running from law enforcement, criminal organizations, and federal task forces. She wasn't prepared for a single operator who understood her training, her methods, and her vulnerabilities. There's something else, Giselle said as we finalized operational plans. Quinn didn't just kill Blackstone and steal money. She eliminated 6 other people yesterday, Romano's remaining associates, Blackstone's personal staff, even the cleaning crew who might have seen sensitive documents. Professional housekeeping. Except she missed someone. Dr. Preston Hayes, the medical examiner who processed your daughter's autopsy. Quinn tried to eliminate him last night, but he escaped. He's in protective custody now, and he has information about the torture that isn't in any official report. My pulse quickened. What kind of information? Physical evidence that contradicts the timeline Quinn established. Proof that your daughter was alive longer than anyone reported, that she suffered injuries consistent with prolonged interrogation, and that someone with advanced medical knowledge kept her conscious throughout the entire process. Dr. Hayes could provide forensic evidence that would support federal charges against Quinn Morrison, but only if we could keep him alive long enough to testify. Quinn would be hunting him as aggressively as we were hunting her. Where is Hayes now? Federal safe house, probably 20 miles outside the city. But Quinn has CIA training. She'll find him eventually. Not if we find her first. My secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Agent Morgan. Financial intelligence suggests target moving toward northern extraction point. Recommend immediate interdiction. The hunt was entering its final hours. Quinn Morrison was running out of time, money, and options. But she was also most dangerous when cornered. And she had 8 years of operational knowledge about criminal networks that could destroy dozens of organizations. One last question, I said to Giselle. When this is over, when Quinn Morrison is dead and the evidence is secured, what happens to your family's operations? Business continues. Money gets laundered, politicians get paid, federal investigations get misdirected. The only difference is professional management instead of psychotic indulgence. And if I decide your operations need to be shut down too? Giselle smiled coldly. Then you'd better make sure you eliminate all the evidence when you eliminate Quinn Morrison. Because some secrets are too valuable to risk. The message was clear. I could have justice for Ivy, but only by enabling the criminal network that had made her murder possible. Justice and moral compromise wrapped together in a package I couldn't refuse. Sometimes the price of revenge is becoming the thing you're fighting against. The abandoned airfield 30 miles north of the city was Quinn Morrison's mistake. She'd chosen it for the private runway, the isolation, and the proximity to the Canadian border. But she'd also chosen a location I'd used for covert operations 15 years ago, a place where I knew every building, every sight line, every tactical advantage. Giselle's intelligence network had tracked Quinn's movements through financial transactions and communication intercepts. 3 chartered flights scheduled for midnight, each heading to different countries. Quinn was covering her tracks, creating multiple escape routes while planning to use only one. But she'd underestimated how well I knew her psychological profile. Through thermal imaging, I watched her inspect the aircraft scheduled for Geneva, her real escape route. The other flights were decoys, professional misdirection designed to confuse pursuit. Quinn Morrison was running a classic CIA exfiltration protocol, textbook perfect except for one detail. She was running it against someone who'd helped write the textbook. Target confirmed. I radioed to Agent Morgan's task force positioned 2 miles away. Single operator, armed, preparing for immediate departure. Copy. Federal agents are standing by for your signal. But this wasn't going to be a federal operation. Quinn Morrison had tortured my daughter for training purposes, recorded her death as educational material, and destroyed evidence to protect herself. Justice required something more personal than arrest and trial. I moved through the darkness toward the hangar, using shadows and abandoned equipment for cover. Quinn was inside, probably conducting final security checks before departure. Professional habits that would become fatal vulnerabilities. The hangar's side entrance was unlocked. Overconfidence or a trap. I entered silently, scanning for motion sensors, pressure plates, any indication of prepared defenses. Quinn was too smart to leave herself completely exposed. "Hello, Nathaniel." Her voice came from the aircraft, calm and controlled. "I was wondering when you'd find me." I remained in the shadows, automatic weapon trained on the plane. Quinn Morrison, former CIA operative, current murderer, soon-to-be corpse. Such hostility. I thought military professionals appreciated tactical excellence. I appreciate justice. Your torture of my daughter wasn't tactical. It was sadistic entertainment. Your daughter was collateral damage in a larger operation. Unfortunate, but necessary. Quinn's silhouette moved inside the aircraft cabin. Blackstone's torture hobby was becoming a liability. I used her death to eliminate that liability while advancing strategic objectives. Strategic objectives? Taking control of an $8 billion money laundering operation. Your investigation provided perfect cover for eliminating competition and seizing assets. I circled the hangar, maintaining cover while closing distance to the aircraft. Quinn was still talking, which meant she was either stalling for time or positioning for an ambush. Romano broke under interrogation, I said. Gave up everything. Locations, personnel, operational protocols. Federal task forces are rolling up your entire network. Romano was expendable. The real assets are protected by compartmentalized security and offshore legal structures. Federal authorities will prosecute small fish while the large fish swim to deeper waters. And you swim away with $8 million in stolen money? I swim away with complete operational control of the most sophisticated criminal network on the East Coast. The money was just startup capital. Quinn Morrison wasn't running away. She was relocating headquarters. Geneva was a temporary stop, not a final destination. She was planning to rebuild the entire operation under her personal control. Blackstone made one critical mistake. Quinn continued. He let emotion contaminate business decisions. Personal satisfaction became more important than operational security. Is that why you killed him? I killed him because he was weak. Your daughter's murder should have been quick, clean, untraceable. Instead, he turned it into performance art complete with video documentation. Sloppy. Unprofessional. I was close enough now to see inside the aircraft cabin. Quinn sat casually in a leather chair, apparently unarmed, projecting complete confidence. But her positioning gave her clear sightlines to all approaches while keeping her protected by the aircraft's armored hull. "The beautiful irony," she said, "is that you've been working for me this entire time. Every move you made, every target you eliminated, every intelligence breakthrough, all of it served my strategic objectives." Romano's interrogation, the warehouse raid, federal surveillance of Blackstone's operations, perfectly orchestrated to eliminate my competition while providing cover for the real operation. "You've been my most effective asset, Nathaniel. It's almost a shame to kill you." The aircraft engines started to warm up. Quinn was beginning her departure sequence while keeping me engaged in conversation. Professional multitasking, but it also divided her attention. "One question," I said. "The footage of my daughter's torture. Why preserve it if you were planning to eliminate Blackstone anyway?" "Training material. Your daughter's psychological breaking point provides valuable data for future operations. Fear responses, pain tolerance, leverage techniques, all documented for educational purposes." Educational purposes. "The interrogation protocols I developed using your daughter are now standard procedure for high-value target processing. Her suffering serves the greater good of organizational efficiency." That's when Ghost 7 took complete control. I moved faster than Quinn's reflexes could track, using smoke grenades to obscure visibility while closing distance to the aircraft. She fired 3 shots in my general direction, good tactical instincts, but she was shooting at shadows. When the smoke cleared, I was inside the cabin with my weapon pressed against her temple. "Nathaniel Cross doesn't exist anymore," I said quietly. "He died watching his daughter get tortured. What's left is something you helped create. You won't kill me. You're too professional, too disciplined. Military code of conduct prevents summary execution." "You're right. Military code does prevent summary execution. I activated the recording device on my phone, but my daughter's code requires it. Quinn Morrison died knowing exactly what she'd created when she tortured Ivy Cross. She died understanding that some lines, once crossed, transform the person who crosses them." The federal task force arrived 20 minutes later to find Quinn's body and enough evidence to prosecute 37 criminal organizations across 12 countries. The network she'd spent 8 years building was destroyed in a single night. Dr. Hayes provided forensic testimony that sent 6 other operatives to federal prison for life. The torture footage became evidence in the largest RICO prosecution in federal history. Justice for Ivy was complete. But justice had required becoming something I'd never been before, an executioner operating outside legal authority, motivated by personal vengeance rather than professional duty. The price of revenge is always paid by the person seeking it. 6 months after Quinn Morrison's death, I stood in the federal courthouse watching the final verdicts being read. 37 defendants, including 3 senators, 2 judges, and a dozen high-ranking police officials. The criminal network that had enabled my daughter's murder was being dismantled piece by piece. The defendant is hereby sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, Judge Oliver Hartwell announced as Romano's fate was sealed. The man who had tortured Ivy would spend his remaining years in a federal penitentiary, reliving his crimes every night. Detective Brooke Martinez sat beside me in the gallery, her badge restored after internal affairs cleared her of any wrongdoing. Agent Morgan had testified on her behalf, confirming her cooperation with the federal task force throughout the investigation. "How does it feel?" Brooke asked as we walked out of the courthouse. "Empty," I said honestly. Justice doesn't bring her back. The past 6 months had been a blur of depositions, testimonies, and federal proceedings. Quinn Morrison's evidence files had exposed corruption extending into the highest levels of government. The investigation would continue for years, unraveling decades of criminal conspiracy. But Ivy was still dead. The Torino family had honored their agreement, providing complete testimony about their money laundering operations in exchange for reduced sentences. Giselle received 15 years instead of life, a calculated trade that destroyed her organization while preserving her survival. Sometimes justice requires compromise with evil to achieve a greater good. I drove to Riverside Cemetery as the sun set over the city. Ivy's headstone was simple, elegant, exactly what she would have chosen. The inscription read, Ivy Cross, beloved daughter, seeker of truth, fighter for justice. Hey, sweetheart, I said, kneeling beside her grave. Got some news for you. I told her about the verdicts, the convictions, the complete destruction of the network that had killed her. Every person responsible was either dead or imprisoned. The torture footage had been used as evidence, then sealed permanently, ensuring her suffering wouldn't be entertainment for anyone ever again. The university is establishing a scholarship in your name, I continued. Full tuition for law students who want to become prosecutors. Your professor said you would have loved that. A gentle breeze rustled the flowers I'd placed on her grave. White roses, her favorite. For a moment, I could almost hear her voice, telling me she was proud, telling me it was time to let go of the rage. But letting go meant accepting that some part of me had died with her in that warehouse. The father who had believed in justice through legal systems, who had trusted institutions to protect the innocent, who had thought his military service guaranteed his family's safety. That man was gone, replaced by someone harder, colder, more dangerous. My phone buzzed with a message from Victor. New mission parameters available. High-value target, significant compensation, complete operational autonomy. The old life was calling, offering purpose beyond grief, identity beyond revenge. But accepting meant admitting that Nathaniel Cross the father was dead, replaced permanently by Ghost 7 the weapon. I love you, baby girl, I whispered to the headstone. I hope I made you proud. As I walked away from her grave, I made a decision that would define the rest of my life. The hunt for Ivy's killers was over, but there were other monsters in the world, other victims who deserved justice, other families destroyed by criminal networks that thought wealth and power made them untouchable. Quinn Morrison had been right about one thing. My daughter's death had created something new, something more dangerous than anything I'd been before. But she'd been wrong about my motivation. This wasn't about strategic objectives or operational efficiency. This was about ensuring no other father would stand beside his daughter's grave, wondering if justice was just another word for revenge. 3 days later, I disappeared from the city, leaving behind pension checks, property deeds, and the normal life I'd tried to build after military service. Ghost 7 was operational again, hunting predators who preyed on the innocent, extracting justice from people who thought they were beyond its reach. Some weapons are forged in fire. Others are forged in loss. The difference is that loss-forged weapons never break. The Yindi, before we part ways, I want to ask you something that's been on my mind throughout this entire journey. What drives someone to seek justice when the system fails them? How far would you go to protect the people you love? I'm curious to know where you're watching this story unfold from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. It means the world to know this tale of betrayal and justice is reaching people across the globe. If this story of revenge and redemption gripped you from beginning to end, smash that like button and hit subscribe for more intense thriller content. Your support fuels these epic narratives of justice and retribution. But here's what I really want to know. Comment below and tell me exactly what types of stories captivate you most. Do you prefer military revenge tales like this one? Family betrayal stories? Corporate corruption thrillers? Wife cheating and ultimate justice narratives? The more specific you are about your preferences, the better I can craft future stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Until we meet again in the next spine-chilling tale of betrayal and revenge, remember, justice delayed is not justice denied. It's justice personalized. Take care and keep seeking the truth in every story. Story finished.